Barnita Pasu. I would like to specially thank Urban Sir and Abropol Sir. Thank you, sir, for the opportunity. And here I begin with my session, which is NEP 2020. So I'm about to share my screen. I hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, National Education Policy 2020, major transformational reforms in education sector. Education in India has been given the utmost importance and priority since epoch of civilization establishment. While the rest of the world was still learning about their social needs, India was way ahead of its time by being the powerhouse of knowledge with Takshashila University. Sadly, due to rigid social system, India itself sabotaged its potential by limiting education to certain social classes, and the education which was originally a necessity became luxury. With correct measures and reforms, both pre-independence and post-independence, education has now regained its importance uh, regained its importance, and the central government has been actively ensuring that there is complete enrollment of each student in education. National Policy on Education 1968 set on the guidelines provided by Daulat Singh Kothari ensured compulsory education for all by adding education in the concurrent list under Article 42 of the Constitution. It also sets framework for the learning process to bring in uniformity in education, which was lacking in our country. The National Policy of Education 1986, which was uh, modified under the governance of Mr. Rajiv Gandhi again to fulfill his late mother, Mrs. Indira Gandhi's goals, left incomplete in National Policy of Education 1968 by expanding scholarships, promoting adult education, and inculcating the backwards actively in education. While the NPE 1968 laid down framework, NPE 1986 worked on the other educational needs of the country, such as open schooling and open university being introduced to our country. Now, what is the need for new education policy? The losses caused by the old foundation of the losses caused by the pandemic has shaken up the old foundation of education in our country, causing a raging change. Uh, and to overcome these challenges, we need a 180-degree reformation in our learning goals, uh, assessment, process, and outcomes. This in turn has thrown light on the other urgent needs of education like universalization and versatilize education. Preparing self-reliant and self-empowered students who will in turn empower nation to build manpower capacity and capability, for which curriculum should be reformed in a way and reframed in a way that lets education to be vocalized and ensuring attainment of complete potential of students and making learning a joyful experience, hence retaining educational importance for the dropouts. NEP 2020. In June 2017, a committee for the draft National Education Policy was constituted under the chairmanship of eminent scientist and Padma Vibhushan, Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan, which submitted the draft for National Education Policy on 31st May 2019. Highlights of NEP 2020. The National Policy of Education aims to bring in transformational reforms in school, and higher education, and thus shape India into global learning and knowledge superpower. New policy aims for universalization of education from preschool to secondary level with 100% GER, that is gross enrollment ratio, in school education by 2030. The new 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 school curriculum with 12 years of schooling and 3 years of Anganwadi or preschooling must be introduced. Teaching up to the grade 5 must be in mother tongue or regional language, whichever the student is in comfortable. Assessment reforms with 360-degree holistic progress card tracking students' progress for achieving learning outcomes is given due importance. GER or gross enrollment ratio in higher education must be raised to 50% by 2035 is the aim of National Education Policy 2020. Higher education curriculum to be flexible of subjects, and there must be multiple entry and exit to be allowed with appropriate certifications. NEP 2020 advocates increased use of technology with equity. National Educational Technology Forum must be created. Vision of National Education Policy 2020 is to inculcate and include all the classes and all the sections of society in education, and making a classroom a vibrant knowledge society by providing high quality education to all. There must be deep sense of respect among the students and learners for the constitutional beliefs such as fundamental rights and duties, and bonding them with country, building in patriotical spirit, and hence creating global leaders by instilling skills, values, and dispositions that support responsible commitment to human rights. The key principles of national education policy begins with diversity. Although diversity is more about difference in various social classes and various walks of life, students coming from various walks of life, and although NEP 2020 aims for universalization of education, it doesn't ignores the unique needs of every student and their connection with the local needs of specific states and cities and villages. By encouraging education in mother tongue, it caters to the primary diverse need of learners, which is the language barrier. Equity and inclusion. We all can never be equal and same to each other. Catering to individual differences only makes the learning process successful. Making education flexible enough that it caters to the diverse needs and yet including them in one classroom is one of the main objectives of NEP 2020. Use of technology. Technology is a knowledge body which can be acquired with learning. NEP 2020 focuses on making each student independent, empowered, and technologically skilled individuals. Sorry for the interruption. Emphasis on conceptual understanding. The conceptual understanding instead of rote learning must be promoted, and both the pedagogy and assessment should be reformed in a way that focus on concept rather content is being done, and how the students or learners can incorporate the concept learned and hence creating something new out of it must be the utmost priority of the learning process. The early childhood care and education is given its due importance. Just a second. I feel like I missed out a slide. No, I didn't. So, the early childhood care and education is given its due importance by the setting up a foundational learning curriculum which is universalized in a way that it fits in the required needs and yet catering to the individual needs such as uh, uh, teaching must be done in the mother tongue or regional language and there should be preparatory ground for their learning and each and every student must have access to the childhood care and education and it should be multifaceted and it should not be limited to only one method of learning. It should be ability of learning. It should be multifaceted in a way that each student with different interests and different way of learning learns the concept. The learning outcomes must be reformed, ensuring universal access to education at all levels. And the schools must be built with such capacity that it can cater to this need of all the students. There must be multiple pathways to learning involving both formal and informal education modes and the focus should be on bringing back the dropouts. The students who drop out of school uh, because of their certain needs and because of either the economic conditions or they're losing interest in studies and losing the importance for education. Many of the students, if you overhear them, they always talk among themselves that why we should study this topic is not going to be important for us. It is not going to support the education is not supporting my goals. So education should be reformed in such a way that it is aligned with each student's goals and they should be aided with economic help if economic or financial reasons are the main cause of their dropping out of the school or higher education. Alternative centers should be set up if the students cannot avail regular school. They should be given the facility of open schooling, and open schooling should be given its due importance as well. Peer tutoring. A lot of times our friends and peers understand our needs which the teachers fail to understand, so there must be healthy discussion and there must be a healthy learning environment among the peers and such activities should be encouraged that the students interacts with the class so that the learning objectives are attained. Expected outcomes of NEP 2020. Universalization of access so that each child of Indian society can access education from ECCE, that is early childhood care and education, to secondary education. Ensuring equity and inclusion, all the students, irrespective of their caste, creed, gender, or physical ability and disability, they should all be included in one classroom, in an inclusive classroom, bringing back 2 crores out of school children which have been away from schooling due to some reasons, attain SDG goals, that is Sustainable Development and Growth Goals as laid down by the United Nations, improving educational literacy and numeracy. The students must be trained in a way that they are literate and they can use their computations and logical skills. Focus on 21st century skills in teaching, learning, and assessment. This is the most important outcome which NEP 2020 expects out of this reform. Resource sharing, such as school complexes, under this point, the expected outcome states that the private school and one private school and one government school collab with each other in a way that it yields productive results for both the students of the groups. Effective governance, separation of powers and common norms. overcoming the language barrier in learning by encouraging multilingual approach. Common standards for public and private school education must be the common standards for the government schools and the private schools should be equal and standardized. Transformational curricular and pedagogical structure. Earlier, the older system which we were following was primary education and then 10 years of matriculation education and 2 years of intermediate. However, with the change being brought with the new education policy, there are certain reforms that are made, such as 5 years of foundational education, that is the play school or the Anganwadi preschooling, and then 2 years of kindergarten, then 3 years, that is 2 years of 1 and 2 classes, and then 3 years. That is from class 3 to class 5 must be grouped together in the age group of 8 to 11 years, which is the preparatory stage for the higher learning or the secondary or middle stage learning. Then the middle stage, which begins from class 6 to class 8, and then 4 years of secondary stage learning, that is from class 9 to class 12. And the new education policy aims at retaining these students till class 12, that is the secondary stage, so that there is no dropout. Although we as a school, the private schools do not experience the dropout rates as much, but the government schools, they experience a lot of dropouts because of various socio-economic drawbacks which the students face. So the foundational learning is multi-level play or activity-based learning. Preparatory stage includes play, discovery, and activity-based learning with interactive classroom settings. Begins with experiential learning. The activity-based learning is now transformed to experiential learning. The students get to experience the topics through their multiple senses or by activities in various subjects such as science, mathematics, arts, social sciences, and humanities. And then follows the last or the secondary stage, which is of 4 years, and it is multidisciplinary. That is to say, the students can take up any discipline, be it science, commerce, or arts, or a combination of the subjects if they choose, because of the flexibility that is provided by the new education policy, and it should cater to the needs of these students so that they do not drop out saying that in science, I want to take up science, but I lack in this subject, so I need to drop out of this subject and should take something which is suitable to me. It should be flexible, and uh, it should be in such a way that it builds greater critical thinking, and it should be as per students' choice of subjects. The ECC framework states that NCPFECE, that is National Curricular and Pedagogical Framework for Early Childhood Education, will be drafted by NCERT such that to universalize school education, and a 3 months play-based school preparatory module is done at grade 1, which the program of which is designed by NCERT itself, so that they are oriented with the school environment. So the early childhood education should be in such a way that of course, it is based on the play methods or the activity based methods, but it should be focusing more on building their preparing their minds for learning and building their curiosity, their logical and problem solving skills, and their orientation with arts, crafts, and music. There should be it should be in such a way that it builds strong relationship with nature. They uh, they are well acquainted with colors, shapes, alphabets, and numbers. Earlier, when we used to be kids and we used to be in primary school, we used to learn alphabets with their consonants form. Like alphabets were just read out as letters, but now the focus is on sounds. The teaching of alphabets is done on phonics method, so that the students, when they hear a word, and they can make out the spelling going by the sounds. So it builds their logical thinking and their problem solving as well. And there should be team spirit being built in their personality, and play based and discovery based learning should be promoted. They should be strengthened with morals and ethics, and they should be encouraged and motivated in a way that they build good self identity and self esteem, and their personality is well equipped with etiquettes, behavior, and emotional development. Reduction in curriculum. The new education policy aims at broadening the learner's minds instead of overloading it with information. Think and create instead of rote and learn is the new learning objective of NFE 2020. They must learn with their own experiences and not just by the content that is being provided. And they should not be spoon fed with content. Instead, their minds should be equipped with creating more content. Focus on learning objectives, competencies, and subjects integration. When there is minimal difference between the different disciplines, the student's mind vessel will contain more and more information and knowledge. When they focus on one topic through various disciplines, it will aid in the fulfillment of the learning objectives. I get hold of a very good example given by our principal sir the previous year. I remember we were sitting in the class, and it was a meeting of all the primary teachers along with our junior coordinator, ma'am. And he said we should align our topics, our lessons in such a way that if the child is being taught about uh, water cycle in science, then he should be taught about a poem or prose in literature related to rain, or maybe something like that, so that the student can relate. Like whenever the student see it's raining, he can relate about what he learned in water cycle in science, and so on. We can integrate various subjects with one single topic, which will build their critical thinking skills, and the outcome will be competent learners. Mental and physical health and well-being. The educators have realized that without a healthy mind and a healthy body, outcomes cannot be attained, which makes the long-term goals of education incomplete. Nowadays, a lot of schools have sought professional counselors to keep a check on their mental health and hence getting a 360-degree holistic report of their students. Innovative pedagogy transforming teaching learning process. Innovative pedagogy is being encouraged now. We teachers are continuously working hard to yield better results, and to aid that, CBSE and our school organizes intensive training sessions for tinkering new ideas and innovative pedagogy like multiple intelligence learning method and experiential learning method, and so on. Even storytelling is a very good innovative method in and can be inculcated in various disciplines. Textbook with local content and flavor. Textbooks are the most reliable teaching learning aid, and they should be designed in a way to upkeep with the local needs of students. The student living in Jamshedpur cannot relate with the life of student living in Delhi, and they should be the textbook should be designed in such a way that it gives the learners opportunity to learn ahead of textbooks with relating with their daily life experiences. And CBSE has brought in online learning platforms like Diksha for digital learning, and there are many digital libraries available nowadays, which does not limit learning, and the learners can unbound their curiosity. India's future and India's leadership roles in the upcoming field. MHRD understands that an ideal learner is one who is skilled at various fields and knowledge. Uh, an ideal leader is one who is strengthened with computational skills, logical thinking, technological and literacy skills, and should be an all-rounder in everything he does. He should be good in sports. He should be good in health. He should be good in personality. He should be good with his logic. He should be well equipped with technology, and should have good computational skills as well. Examination in grades 1 to 8. Continuous and intensive formative assessments should be conducted in alignment with the learning outcomes, focusing on concept instead of content, which will aid in or help in achieving the critical learning objectives, and it will result in the progress of not just the student but the school overall. Reforming examinations in grades 9 to 12, including board exams. NEP 2020 aims at reforming summative assessment under the guidelines of NCERT, SCERT, Board of Assessment, and PARAK. PARAK stands for Performance Assessment Review and Analysis of Knowledge for Holistic Development. Teachers must be prepared for a transformation assessment system by the year 2022 to 2023 academic session. Each board shall ensure equivalence of academic standards in learners' attainments. Standards, norms, and guidelines for school boards should be reformed through Parak National Center. And all the assessments should begin with mathematics and other subjects offered at the school levels. Transforming the culture of assessment. The objective of assessment should be focused on core concepts, higher order and foundational skills, and these objectives can be attained by self-assessment, peer assessment, formative assessment, and summative assessment. There are various competitive exams too to boost up their skills and confidence of learners. Holistic progress card. The change in presenting the report cards will now be holistic progress cards, which will not only focus on the academics of students but will reflect learners' uniqueness, their cognitive, socio-emotional, and psychomotor domain based on self-assessment, peer assessment, and teacher assessment. The AI-based software should be developed to keep a track on the growth of school years and to help students make optimal career choices. So Progress cards, which were earlier a ground for comparison, will now be a card to be used for further decision making and to have an overall view of the progress of students. Multilingualism and the power of language learning. The new education policy aims at removing the language barrier and not giving the importance to language which was given too much to the language earlier, and the new approach of teaching should be fit in such a way that the unique needs of every learner should be met, and the language is no more a barrier in learning. The three languages must be taught by the state or the union territories, which includes one mother tongue, one primary language, and one secondary language. All classical languages will be widely available in schools as per the options. Even the foreign languages would be a part of three languages, and the students will be given the freedom to choose languages among the given options. School complexes and clusters. The new policy suggests teaming up together of one government school along with one private school, sharing resources and effectively governing to attain optimum utilization of school capacity. Bal Bhavan should be strengthened or set up for children of all age groups to partake in art related, career related, and play related activities. Samajik Chetna Kendras should be established to utilize the unused capacity of school and promote social, intellectual, and voluntary activities by the students. Standard setting and accreditation. State authorities will be entrusted and empowered with responsibility to ensure all schools follow up the late minimum professional and quality standards. HECI, that is Higher Education Commission of India, will be set up as a single uh, over research umbrella body over the entire higher education, excluding medical and legal education. Teachers' education. Training courses will be integrated with minimum degree qualifications along with vocational certification of the profession, uh, and the local school leaderships will be roped in for this movement. The students who wish to take up a career in teaching profession will be welcomed in the four-year integrated B.Ed course, which will provide them with the minimum degree of qualification and minimum degree of graduation, and 2 years B.Ed program will continue for the candidates who are already a graduate in a specialized subject, and 1 year B.Ed program must be organized for the students who are masters in a specific discipline. Focus on socio-economically disadvantaged groups. The SETGs can be broadly categorized based on gender identities, particularly female and transgenders individuals. Although in cities we do not face this problem of dropouts, based on gender reasons, but in villages or the rural areas, they face this issue a lot. The female candidates or the transgenders, even in cities, they are not enrolled in the classes for higher education. Socio-cultural identities, such as the scheduled caste, the scheduled tribes, OBCs, and other minorities, based on their socio-economic standards, are often left out of education because of these grounds. Geographical identities, such as students from villages, small towns, and aspirational districts, are often left out because of the lack of infrastructure and resources, and they should be provided with optimum resources and adequate facilities so that they can avail education and enroll themselves in higher education. Disability, which was a great barrier for the PWD or children with special needs, were lagging behind in education, should no more be a barrier because of their disabilities, and they should be the schools should be well equipped in a way that it can cater to the needs of CWSN candidates, and they are encouraged enough to look beyond their disabilities. Socioeconomic conditions, such as migrant communities, low income households, children in vulnerable situations, victims of or children of victims of trafficking, orphans, including child beggars in urban areas and the urban poor. Uh, we all are very much aware by the initiative taken by Tata Steel, uh, which promotes the students who come under this category, under its flagship program of Mastiki Pathshala. The students are often included who are distracted from their cultural life, and our students from low income household are in very vulnerable situations and are victims of various uh, social they are victims of various social uh, problems, and some of them are orphans, or they were in very poor conditions, and they are now included in education, and they are a part of our regular school, and hence our school is an example of inclusive education as well. Ensuring equity. Equity in education can be attained by setting up unique learning outcomes for each categorized students, addressing their issues with professional and economical help. And if inclusive schools do not fulfill the needs of such students, then additional help must be provided to such students. And hence, we can attain the goal of equity in education. Integrating vocational education at all levels. Uh, Practice-based curriculum must be introduced instead of theory-based curriculum. The skill gap should be recovered, and it should be bridged. The students who are interested in a specific course should be actually skilled instead of given the theory knowledge of that discipline. Open distance learning mode. Courses to be offered through open and distance learning mode should be encouraged and should be given the due importance. Exposure to vocational education by 2025, the NEP 2020 aims to encourage at least 50% of learners and give them the exposure to vocational education. Lok Vidya. Lok Vidya knowledge developed in India will be made accessible to students. Skills framework. National skills qualification framework will be detailed further for each discipline, vocation, and profession. Vocational crafts. All students of grades 6 to 8 will in, intern with local vocational experts such as carpenters, gardeners, potters, artists, etc. to develop a vocational craft. They will also be given the other vocational skills like the technological vocational skills and so on. As we discussed earlier about Parak, that it is a setting up of national center for performance assessment, review, and analysis of knowledge for holistic development. It aims at shifting assessment from content to competency and promote critical and creative thinking aligned with 21st century skills in the classroom. The objectives of Parak are as follows: setting norms, standards, and guidelines for assessment and evaluation, guiding state achievement surveys, conducting national achievement surveys. Now, these surveys will in turn throw light on the specific needs of the states and the country as a whole, and hence we can bridge the gap between the needs that were unmet and now which are fulfilled. Monitoring achievements of learning outcomes in the country, which is the ultimate goal of Parak. Online and digital education, inclusion and access, and enhancing educational access to disadvantaged groups, including the Divyang students, that is CWSN students. Blended learning, emphasis on effective models of blended learning should be encouraged. Content creation, digital repository, and dissemination should be performed. Technological integration in teaching, learning, and assessment should be done in a way that uh, doesn't it removes the fear of technology in students' mind, and they become techno friendly with their upcoming building years. Digital platforms and ongoing ICT based educational initiatives should be optimized and expanded. Many online digital learning platforms like Diksha and Swayam are a boon to such curious learners who can be unbounded with the limitations. Now we come to the end of our session, but before we end, let me just summarize the features that are introduced by the new policy. Preparation for schooling and elementary schooling level. Earlier, the primary schooling or the preschool level needs were ignored, and this for many years we were continuing with the same old traditional method, which has now reformed and remechanized in a way to make it much more fun learning, fun experience learning, and so on. Preparatory classes or Bal Vatika for 5 to 6 year old children should be done in Anganwadis or preschools. School infrastructure and resources should be reframed in a way to meet the needs of all the students, that is the CWSN or the gender differences or the socio-economic differences are met. Specialized education zones should be set up, utilizing unused capacity of schools such as Samajik Chetna Kendra. School complex and clusters for resources should be shared among the private school and the government school team. Holistic development of the students. There should not be any hard and fast separation in curricular, extracurricular, and co-curricular activities. For example, if a student is learning a topic in science, uh, there should the student should be actively involved in learning, not just by cognitive learning, but by psychomotor learning and all the 8 multiple intelligence learning. Innovative pedagogies must be explored, such as experiential learning and other learning methods. Book promotion policy and digital libraries should be encouraged so that the students are not just limited to the resources provided by schools, but they can explore various resources by themselves. Holistic report cards must use artificial intelligence for identifying special aptitude of child and praising their uniqueness, which was earlier getting somewhere concealed by the old primitive traditional methods of education, will now be unleashed and their potential will be rediscovered. Vocational education integration for primary grades and 10 days, no back days internship with local trades, craftsmen, or professionals must be done. Uh, Inclusivity. Gender inclusion funds and other special provisions must be done for all the students, such as the gifted children. Adult education should also be encouraged to focus on technology-based solutions, NCF, or for adult education must be provided. NIOS or National Open Schooling should be expanded to include vocational courses and courses for grade 3, grade 5, and grade 8. Medium of instruction should be multilingual, that is, it can be in mother tongue as well as the local language and the formal language or the official language of the institution. Assessment should be more on concept based knowledge instead of content based knowledge. National assessment centers for performance assessment review and analysis of knowledge for holistic development, that is PARAK, should be set up. Uh, Exams in grades 3, 5, and 8, in addition to board exams in grades 10 and 12, must be given importance. Board exams, modular, low stakes, based on conceptual knowledge and its application will be introduced. Curriculum and pedagogical framework. New curricular and pedagogical framework, that is 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, will be introduced. Reduction in curriculum to core concepts, that is a lot of students, we as a teacher get to hear that teacher, why are we learning this concept is not required, what concept, what how will this help us when we grow up. So to the education uh, the education educators in our country have realized that we should not overburden them with unnecessary content, and instead we should focus on the core concept and reduce their burden so that they can build their critical thinking and higher order thinking skills. Identification of life skills must be attained in each grade as a part of NICF. Alternative models of schools to be encouraged to adopt national curriculum framework. ICT integration should be actively done in teaching and learning methodologies. Tracking students as well as their learning levels should be done, and the secondary education should be universalized. That is, a student should not say that I am a part of a rural area and getting education from a rural area cannot compete with a student who is of well uh, facilitated urban areas. So that bridge should be that gap should be bridged. That is the focus of NEP 2020. Teacher recruitments and teacher education, the minimum qualification for attaining the degree of teaching will be 4 years B.Ed, 4 years integrated B.Ed by 2030. Teacher recruitment based on TET, NTA test, and teaching demonstration should be done. TET should be mandated for teaching in the public schools. Minimum 50 hours of in-service training per teacher should avail. National professional standards for teachers should be reformed by the year 2022. IT and data-based predictive planning for uh, requirement of students in teaching in TEIs should be done, and TEIs to move to multidisciplinary colleges and universities by 2030. Stringent actions on non-performing TEIs should be taken. Mandatory for every PhD student to do a module on teacher education. It must be mandated. Role of government departments or bodies or institutions in education. State Department to look after policy making, Directorate of Education to look after operations, and SCRT must look after academics, and State School Standards Authority must set up minimum common standards for online self-disclosure by public and private schools, that is producing the records of the infrastructure, the staffs and the faculties that are employed. Random samplings of students for continuous online feedback on self-disclosure by schools should be done. Strengthening the Central Advisory Board of Education for developing, articulating, evaluating, and revisiting the vision of education on a continuous basis should be done in collaboration with MHRD and corresponding apex bodies of the states. It is desirable that MHRD or Ministry of Human Resource Development be redesigned as Ministry of Education to bring focus back to education and learning. So here we end the session. Uh, I hope you all enjoyed the
Thank you,
session
ma'am.
and it was not
Thank
too
you, ma'am.
long. Thank you,
Yes,
sir. So shall I end?
yes, yes. But it was very good presentation. Yes, yes, ma'am. 1 minute. I'm sending the assessment sheet. Okay. Then you can leave.
Okay, okay, thank you, sir.